Most people don't know what's holding them back, but you do because you listen to me, Sam, your self-care guru and journal junkie. Welcome to Journal Entries, your safe place where you can tune in weekly to get tips, tricks, and journal prompts to uncover your feelings, gain clarity, and make your move. Hello, hello. Welcome to this week's journal entry. This week, we have a guest, Sarah Arvizu. She is a corporate leader and motivational speaker for career-driven moms. In today's episode, she talks about how to stop reacting to life and start regulating your emotions, how to reframe tough situations to become self-aware and calm, and so much more, you guys. Releasing responsibilities of things that aren't yours to carry, navigating kids' emotions and how to really be there for them. And even at the end, she gets into a tangent on the demand for women to develop leadership roles and then how to do so and how she helps out with that. So this is a really awesome, in-depth conversation that I'm really excited for you to listen to. But before we jump in, I need to shout out Jessica and Haley, who have both left comments over on Spotify. You guys are getting your spotlight moment for giving, well, it's Spotify's version of a review. On Spotify, you can comment on each episode rather than give a review like you can on Apple. So over on Spotify, Haley said, "Thank you so much for creating the space for these conversations." I love that. Thank you, Haley. And then Jessica commented twice on one episode, the episode 84, Stop Chasing Presents, Redefining Motherhood Without the Guilt. She said, resonated with this so much. And then on episode 79, all about self-sabotage, she said, this episode was amazing. I really felt like it spoke to me at the deepest level possible. I love Sam's podcast because all of her episodes end with journal prompts that allow us to further explore and dig deeper into the whys and getting to know ourselves better. Thank you guys so much for spending the time to listen to this podcast and then also to review it and rate it and leave these comments. I truly love hearing your feedback and also use them to get ideas on future topics. Okay, now let's dig into the conversation with Sarah. Welcome, Sarah. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so everybody listening, Sarah and I relate on so many different levels. And we first connected because we both have podcasts, actually. And we then realized that we're both single moms. We both came from leadership. We both have like so many like personal attributes that we can relate on and passions that we relate on. And so she's going to share with us today a little bit about everything, I feel like, and most importantly, how to not lose your shit as a mom. And one thing that she is a single mom, and all moms, you know, lose their shit at times, but I think as single moms too, there's just a lot that we deal with. And it's just, it feels like it's so easy to lose your shit. But before we get into all of that, do you want to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. So my name is Sarah. As Sam mentioned, I also have a podcast. My podcast is called Creating Sunshine. And on it, it's, same. I talk about mindset, motherhood, motivation, business, really like nothing is off limits for the podcast. And I currently work full time. I'm in corporate America management, I guess is the easiest way to say it. And I have been at my current job for 25 years. So what I'm leaning towards now, in addition to the podcast, is I'm also working towards speaking engagements, not just for women's events, but also in leadership, because I really feel that your mindset and regulating your emotions and everything that you do, like it's going to affect everything in your personal life, your professional life, everything. So I think that it's useful for anyone, moms, single moms, men, women, like literally everybody, because once you learn how to regulate and control your emotions and your reactions, like for me, it was game changing because I wasn't always this person. Like I was the mom that was losing her shit, that was overwhelmed, that was burnt out, that was stressed out. And I mean, this is probably as recently as 2020 is when this was happening. And I really realized that I need to make a change, and I'm not my best self. I'm not the best mom that I want to be. So that's when I started diving in to doing the personal development and doing the inner work. And I just really want to share my story with other people and, let them know that just because this is the way you might be feeling right now, like it doesn't mean that it has to be that way forever. And like you can make that change.
I love that. One thing you said was that you had to learn how to regulate your emotions. What did that process look like for you?
Um, so for me in the beginning, maybe I would say about 6 months or so after my husband and I had separated, I decided that I was going to try therapy. And I was started going to talk therapy once a week. And I'm not knocking therapy because I know it's fantastic for a lot of people, but for me, I am a very like results driven person and I don't have a lot of time. So I remember, I think it was like our third session and I'm like, okay, what do I do now? What do I do now? And she's like, well, that's not exactly how this works. I'm like, no, but like I'm here and I'm telling my problems and like, so I need answers. And so kind of quickly, and I don't know if maybe she just wasn't my person, because at
Hmm.
the time, I think the problem for me with talk therapy was that I had not processed my feelings. I had not processed my emotions. I had not dealt with what was going on. And expecting someone to be able to give me the answers when I didn't even know what the problem was, really, like now looking back, that's ridiculous. So for me, it switched more. I started listening to podcasts, and instead of music, I was just constantly getting that like motivation in my ear, like as much as I could on the way to work, on the way home from work, like on my days off. And I was just going crazy with it because, it was in my ear all the time. So it started to shift my mindset. And then from there is when I started exploring other things like breath work, meditation. And I found that those were so much more effective for me because it kind of allowed me to go to a place that I didn't even know that I needed to go. And, when you're doing things like that, so whatever's coming up is just coming up. And like every single session was different, everything was different. And that's when I really started to open up. And in addition to that, it was really just like finding community, like finding like-minded women that were going through similar things because I spent a long time like hiding, not even admitting to people that I was separated. It was just going to work, putting on a smile, acting like everything was fine. So when it started coming out, people were like, what the heck? And I'm like, oh yeah, it was like a year ago, but I dealt that whole year going through it by myself. And once I started opening up and talking to other people, and realizing like, no, you're not the only one. Like I mean, what do they say now? Like 50% of marriages end in divorce, like you're not the only one going through this. So it was hard for me to open up and to trust because of everything. But once I started to, and like let those walls down and find those women in that community and just really just own it and just be myself is when things like really started shifting. So I definitely can't say it was just one thing. Like it was definitely like a multitude of things that I had to do, but just really being open to processes and to trying different things and figuring out what worked for me.
Mm. I heard once like you're not unique in your problems and like you're not the only one. And how some people take offense to that because there's comfort in thinking that you are and safety in thinking that you are.
Hmm.
But really, that's just protection. Like you almost feel like you're protecting yourself from the world, and you can kind of cave in and block everybody else out. But once you kind of can accept, like, yeah, this does happen to a lot of people, and you're not the only one to go through divorce or relationship struggles in general. And you're not the only one to have a kid that has meltdowns and, to have
Hmm.
lots of kids that are just like so triggering to you. And I was telling you before, I have a journaling community called Emotionally Empowered. And 1 month, the theme was navigating difficult emotions. And just listening to the women, the emotion that kept coming up was anger.
Hmm.
And it was really hard for them to face because that one emotion, they like almost made it feel like nobody else feels this. Like no other
Hmm.
mom feels this, and I should feel bad for feeling this. And I say this all the time, but one of the members said, I feel like I should love being a mom, and right now I really hate it. And I'm like, just hearing that, I feel like so many women feel validated. Like, yeah, it's not all rainbows and sunshine every single day.
Right. Yeah, that's so true. And I think that, and I just did a podcast interview with my guest, like she said exactly that. She was like, I think that women are really freaking angry And I don't think that they feel safe in saying that or processing that or knowing how to feel that, because we're told so often, like you're the woman, like you should be happy and you should, you know what I mean? Like you should be this and you should be that. And like, no, it's okay. Like we can feel all things. I mean, I'm not saying that you can like go out and have a road rage and like run into the back of somebody's car, but with doing this work, like it is a way to express those emotions like in a safer way. And I think for me, it's been on my terms, because for so long, I felt like I was literally just reacting to life and to everything that was happening to me, and that I had no control over my emotions. And it was like I felt like I lived in a very reactive state, whether it was with my kids, whether it was with my ex-husband, whether it was at work. And I was just trying to make it through the day. And I think that's the biggest thing, is that I talk about it all the time, because sometimes you can't control the situation. You can't control what happened, but you can absolutely control your reaction, your response, like how you even think about it. And for me, that's been the biggest thing, is like, yeah, there's going to be some things that suck. Like, yes, some things in life really do suck. But if you choose to reframe it, and choose to maybe, you find the lesson, or you see the part that doesn't necessarily suck so bad. And at the end of the day, you're able to turn that around, like in your mind, in your heart, and really to truly, for me, it became about not just having like the mask on of it, but like I always say, like my inside started matching my outside, and like really feeling
Mhm.
inside, like, okay, now I feel truly at peace and I feel calm, and I'm not in the kitchen, like doing woosah and taking like 95 deep breaths, but I'm still screaming at my kids because like I can't control it, you know?
Yes. So you said reframing it. And I love that. I do that a lot. But I'm thinking that there's listeners out there that have maybe heard of that term, but they don't know. Like it almost might seem like, oh, reframing is just jumping to the positive. So can you give an example of how you might reframe a situation to feel better and help you get to that calm state?
Yes. Okay, let me use something recent that happened. So just last month, like we were on a family trip and we all went to Nebraska to go visit my sister. And I hadn't seen my sister in almost 3 years. My parents, I convinced them to go. They hadn't seen her in almost 5 years. And through that trip, um, we really found out some pretty crazy things. My dad ended up getting extremely sick. Um, and found out that he had been drinking a lot. He ended up in the hospital. Like he's okay now and he's like on the road to recovery, which we're super happy about. But I think that that would have been a perfect example of a situation in the past where in the beginning I did do this. So I think this is a good example, because in the beginning I was really mad at myself. And I was like, oh my God, why did I think they could travel? Why did I think that this was okay? Why did I think that I could get them on a plane and they could come to Nebraska and everything was going to be fine? Like, what was I thinking? But then I was like, you know what? No, they came, they got to see the kids, they did everything else. And to be honest, I started really looking at it as a blessing in disguise, because had we been here and had we been home, I don't know if we would have found out what was going on, because he would have just continued living his life and probably drinking the way that he was drinking. And who knows what the outcome could have been.
Mhm.
So in order to reframe it though, right after that, I had, like I told you before we started recording, I ended up going on so we came home, he ended up in the hospital, he was hospitalized, and I had already paid and I knew he was safe and I knew that he was going to be taken care of and there was no way he was getting out before I was going to get home anyway. So I had a 4-day retreat. And in being on that retreat, obviously all the women knew what was happening in my life. And that was one example of almost every single woman that was at that retreat had a similar story, whether it was with their brother or their mom or their dad or their grandparent or their uncle or their cousin or whoever it was. And that was really eye-opening for me, because I was like, wow, this is a perfect example of how like not keeping it inside and sharing with people gives other people the permission to open up about their own stories that maybe
Mm.
they've been hiding. And so that was one part of it. But then another part, and that's why I'm so happy that we're doing our interview, was journaling for me and really just writing it down. And at first, like, I was fucking angry. I was really, really angry at the situation, at him, at everything else. But I wrote it down, I let it out. We even like burned it over at the retreat and let it go. But I really had to, I think the biggest thing for me is reflect and realize that other people's decisions are not my fault. I'm not responsible for other people's decisions. I'm not responsible for the actions that they take, no matter how much you love somebody, no matter how much you want them to do something or not do something in that case, is I can't control that. I can only control myself and what I do. I mean, even as much as we want to, I can't even control my kids. So really, I think just sitting with it. And in the past, when we had things that had happened similarly in the family, is I literally just brushed it aside and I didn't talk about it and I didn't deal with it. So reframing it for me is really sitting in it, even though it might be so uncomfortable in the time, but sitting in it, processing it, and really owning, like when you look at a situation, like how much of this am I responsible for? Because I think as women, as moms, as everything, we take on a lot of blame and we take on a lot of guilt for so many things that are completely out of our control. And I realized, you know what? I can beg him all day long not to drink, but at the end of the day, that's his decision.
Mhm.
And I think that that was probably the best way for me to deal with this, because now I feel so much better able to help him in what he needs now, instead of, being mad and being angry about what happened. And for me, it's kind of like what's happened has happened, but like, how are we going to move forward? How are we going to fix this? How are we going to, like, I'm here to support you, but you have to want it too.
That's such a beautiful example for everything, for the reframing of how to use journaling in that example. And I agree, women take on the blame, and responsibility. When you
Hmm.
said all of that, was brought back to how I used to take on responsibility for how other people felt. And I have an affirmation board that I wrote now. I think it was about 2 years ago, but it's still up, like right next to my computer. And I have things blocking it right now, but it says something about like I am not responsible for how other people feel. They
Hmm.
are responsible for managing their own emotions, as am I. Like I can manage my own emotions. And it's just so freeing once you can identify that separation.
Yes.
What's like a key indicator or symptom that that a mom is losing her shit or is about to lose her shit? And then how else do you help her through that?
I know for me, I felt so tense all the time, and I was tense in my shoulders, I was tense in my body. I would start feeling like my heart was racing. Like I had telltale signs in my body that like it was coming. And my
Mm.
deep breaths were ridiculous. Like not now I'm like like those are my deep breaths now. And like before I'm like, almost like I'm going into labor again. And it's like that was all only making things worse, but I definitely, I had heart racing, like even everything would just tense. And I'd be like, oh my God, it's coming, it's coming. And I could not stop it. I could not control it. And I realized, and especially with my kids, is that well, my youngest is probably a little more fortunate because I've learned how to manage this. So I don't think she really remembers me losing my shit so much as my oldest does. My oldest is 10, but I wasn't listening. And I think that's the biggest thing for when somebody comes to you and like they're losing their shit, because I know for me, I've always been that motherly person, like to my sister, to my friends. At work, I've been in leadership since 2008. So I've always been like the fixer. And I think the biggest thing is that when people used to come to me, or when my kids would come to me, like, I just want to fix it. I just want to fix it and I want to give you the solution. And I realize that sometimes when people are about to lose their shit, all they want to do is just be heard. And so with my kids, even we'll ask sometimes like, what do you need right now? Do you need me to listen, or do you want advice? Or, because I used to just go into like mom mode. Well, like, why are you mad? That doesn't even make any sense. Like, who cares? But realizing that to her at 5 years old, like that was huge. And that was, like very traumatizing to her. And she's very upset about the fact that her toy is like broken over here, when I'm thinking that that's ridiculous. But we don't process emotions the same way. And especially like my oldest and I do not, for sure. So I've had to learn how to really like navigate her emotions. And, even whether it's at work or it's with my friends, like I've learned the biggest thing in the beginning is just shut up and just listen
Mhm.
and just see where they take it. Because sometimes people say their whole thing and they're like, oh, thank you. I'm like, I literally didn't do anything. Like I was just sitting here and I was just listening to you. But I think it's listening, it's being present. It's really, you know, seeing people for where they're at. and I try to be a present mom, a present friend, like a present boss, and like not be distracted, not be on my phone, not be doing anything else. And so I realize like if I'm doing that and I feel myself, like I'll flip my phone over or like I'll close my notebook or whatever I'm doing and really like turn towards the person and give them that attention and just really like, make eye contact with them and just listen to them.
I love the what do you need? I've heard that before, but every time I hear that, it's like it's something brand new that I've never heard. But you're so right.
Yeah.
And like I feel like my son has had a broken toy or something, and I'm also a fixer, and so it's so tempting to be like, it's fine, we'll just get new batteries, or we'll just get another one, or to be
Yeah.
like, it's okay, here's a Hershey Kiss instead, to mask it, right? And all they really
Yeah.
want is just to cry about it, or they were just
Hmm.
really upset. I actually picked him up from daycare the other day, and he went in for a hug with his friend, and his friend said no and like ran away. And my son is very sensitive and has really big emotions, and he just broke down and was crying all the way out of the center. And I was just
Hmm.
thinking how like the fixer in me just wanted to distract him and be like, I can give you a hug, or like, let's go home and we can hug Papa and Oma. And like, but at the same time, I was like,
Hmm.
he just wants to feel bad about this. Like, he just needs to like fulfill this
Hmm.
like emotional neat circuitry of like, this feels bad, this happened, and like to work through that and then to maybe hug somebody else or and then to move on. So I love that of what do you need? And the no distractions, I think, is key too, of like
Yeah. Yeah.
full attention, especially as
Especially
your
for the
kids get
kids.
older. Yeah.
Yes, especially for the kids, because I'm even going through that conversation right now with my oldest about, she's 10 and she wants a cell phone and this and that. And so
Mhm.
I try to be very mindful about like my phone use when I'm around her, because I'm like, how can I sit here and tell her that she doesn't need it when it's literally like a third appendage, like belonging to me, right? So I try to be mindful of that, and like we'll have our electronics time together. And then when it's over, like it's over for all of us. It's not like it's over for them and not me, because I
I
don't feel
like
like
that.
that's fair. But like even like you said with your son being sensitive, my youngest this morning, she's 6 and she is like my sensitive soul through and through. And I'm brushing her hair and getting her ready for school. And I'm like, what's wrong? Like I thought I was hurting her. And she's like, nothing. And I'm like, do you feel okay? Because their dad is sick. So I'm being all paranoid this morning, like, oh my gosh, do they have fevers? Are they okay? Should I send them to school? And she's like, I just want to stay with you today. And she just started crying. And I was like, oh my gosh. And so instead of, I was like, well, I want to stay with you too. But then I kind of told her, I said, well, mommy has interviews today. So like, it's not even going to be like fun for you. I said, fun for me, but maybe not fun for you. And, I kind of had to switch. I'm like, well, how about we go get Starbucks when I pick you up from school before we go to your speech therapy? And she's like, that would be good. And I just,
Oh.
it broke my heart. But I was like, what? And at first I'm just like, the old me would have been, stop crying. It's time to go to school. Like, hurry up. What's wrong with you?
Hmm.
And I was like, wait, are you okay? And I really like get down to her level, like eye to eye. And she's like, I just want to stay with you. And it's like, as much as I wanted to just let her stay home from school, I'm also like, I can't, because then kids are manipulative. Like, and I'm sure So if she realizes that that's okay today when she really needs it, like one day she's going to realize that she can just turn that on when she doesn't want to go to school.
Yeah. My son
So,
asks me that almost daily, like to
yeah.
stay home from school. And one time he woke up and said that his stomach hurts, and he never does that. And I was like, oh my gosh. So, same thing. I got super paranoid. And this is when he had like just turned 3. I let him stay home from school. And maybe like an hour later, he was like, Mommy, am I staying home from school today? And I said, yes. And he said, Yay, it worked. And I was like, oh, what?
Oh my goodness.
And that was the only time he's done it. And I'm like, okay, well, now I know that,
Right?
you know,
Yeah, but you never know. That's how my old is. It's like 3 days into the new school year. And she's like, Mom, I have a stomach ache. I was like, really? You didn't have a stomach ache all summer. Eating
yeah.
ice cream, eating junk food, all summer fine. Now today, and then we're driving to school and she's like doubled over in pain. And then the mom and me starts going, wait, is there really something wrong?
Right.
Like I
Yeah.
start to feel really bad about it. And I'm like, okay, maybe we should go to the doctor. And so normally when I throw the doctor out there and she says that she doesn't want to go is when I kind of
Mm.
get the feeling that she's just doing it. And that day she was like, no, I think we do. And I was like, okay, maybe we should go to the doctor.
Yeah. The perspective of being a mom now is so different from what I was thinking when I was a kid in that position. Like I always thought of my mom as and my parents as like, oh, they're so firm on their decisions. But for me, I'm like, I feel like my son thinks that I'm firm, but in my head, I'm constantly like, oh no, like, should I do this or
Same.
should I do that? Or he's so close to like getting a different answer from me, you know?
Right, right. Like to them, we seem like we have it all figured out. And in
Yeah.
our head, we're just like, I'm just winging it. Like I
Yeah.
really I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah. So funny.
That's what I tell my oldest. I'm like, well, you're like my practice.
Yeah.
Like, you're my first. I didn't really know what I was doing. Your sister got a little bit luckier on that end.
So let's switch gears a little bit and talk about your speaking. So I've a lot of your Instagram is your speaking engagements, and you've spoken to like at women's events. And so I would love to hear like what is it that you speak on? What do you love speaking about? And what types of like venues do you speak to?
Okay, so I have hosted my own live event, and that was like the first thing that I did. And I was kind of the person that had told myself, like, I'm not good at public speaking. Like, I can't speak in front of other people. I'm too nervous. So that was kind of my first thing that I was like, okay, I'm going to try this. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to record a podcast in front of a live audience. And I thought that would be really cool. So I had my guest came on. She has a community that she's not far from me. And I messaged her and I was like, hey, what do you think about this? And she goes, yes, absolutely. Like we had met one time in person. And so she was ready for it. And we did the podcast and then we did like a little Q&A after. But I got it before, with the microphone, stood in front of everybody, introduced myself, talked about myself. And Sam, it was so easy, like so easy. I was shocked. And that's when
That's
I kind of
amazing.
realized like when it's something that I love and something that I'm passionate about, like I can do it no problem. And I thought about all the times that I've already spoken in front of people at work. I mean, I've been the hiring manager for, I can't even tell you, on and off for probably the last 10 years. And during that, I have to speak to the groups of all the new employees, and talk to them about the company and everything else. And, I started really thinking about it. Like, I should really give myself more credit because I've spoken in public more than what I think. So now, which I'm just starting to get into the speaking, and really, I think that it's not that different for the women's events versus like the leadership that I want to speak to, because I
Mhm.
am like, I have pitched myself at my company. And it's not a job that exists. So it's literally something that I'm like, I want to help develop the future leaders in this company because I think that there is a huge gap between people that get promoted because they're the best employees and the hardest workers, but they're not necessarily leaders. And it's not to any like fault of their own, because I do think there's natural leaders. There are people that they just have it. But then there's people that don't, and they get into those positions and then they don't know how to have the difficult conversations. They don't know how to navigate, when an employee is upset, or even how to deal with, their coworkers, like other managers or superiors, and don't know how to stand up for themselves, or respectfully like say what they think is right or wrong, or any of those things. And that's what I was telling them is like, we need to bridge that gap, and we need to give the leaders the tools that they need in order to prioritize their time, manage their time. And so often I know there's like the corporate burnout, because people feel like they have to be on 24/7. So they're
Mhm.
home but they're still checking their emails, they're home but they're still taking calls. And I'm more of the fact that I'm going to manage and prioritize my time well while I'm there. So when I go home, like I'm off. And I have been encouraging like coworkers and people that I've mentored over the years to really like adopt that. Like there's nothing happening here that is can't wait until tomorrow, basically. So we're going to turn off your notifications. If you choose to check your email throughout the day, throughout the night, that's on you. But for me, and I don't have notifications on for anything, for my Instagram, for my email, for nothing. So everything is on my terms, because if I don't, then as soon as I see that, it's like I'm right back in that mindset, like I'm on. And now I'm back at work, even though I'm at home and I'm supposed to be with my kids. And that's the big thing for the leaders. But for the women's events too, I think it's really just, it's all really your mindset. And if you can change your mindset, you can change your life. And I think for the women, it's, like I said earlier, is that if you feel like you're stuck in a way and you have no control, like, first of all, you're giving other people in your life way too much power, because you are the one that has your power. You're the one that can take it back. You're the one that can change your life. And you're never too old. It's never too late. It's not that you can't do something different. I mean, I'm going to be 45 years old next year, and I feel like I'm just getting started. And I don't know where this could take me in my career. And if this and I would love to do it within my company, but if it doesn't work out within my company, like I know that this is such a good thing and such a big idea. Like I am completely open to speaking to other people's companies. And there's a girl at the retreat that she is literally on the planning committee for her company. And she goes, we need a motivational speaker in January and it's virtual. And she goes, I'm pitching you because I think that you would be perfect. And, that's just what it's about. Like, I'm not completely limited to my company. So if anybody's listening to this and you guys are like, wait a minute, like I have a company and we need some help, like go ahead and reach out because I'm totally open. Like I've been at my current company for 25 years. I've been in management since 2008. So, I mean, I've hired hundreds, if not thousands of people. Like, I know how to do it. I know how to talk to people. And I was kind of known, or I guess you would say I'm still known, that if people knew that they wanted to like get promoted or they wanted to move up, that they know they can come to me because I do at the core, like I love teaching. I love helping. I love developing. And to be honest, like the more people that know how to do the job, like it's going to make my job easier because why gatekeep, like I'm just
Hmm.
going to share the knowledge and that way it can make everybody better. And especially I think when you're at a big corporation, that what you're I don't want to say like founding fathers because like it's not the country, but the founding members or the founding people of the company, sometimes I think as you go down and when your company's so huge, like the ideals get kind of lost,
Hmm.
and sometimes people are just doing the best that they can with the tools that they have. But I really want to teach people, better tools and better ways because I think, I see personally as people are like either good people end up stepping down or leaving the company, or people that would be really great don't want to move up in it because they see the way that the current leadership is going. But I've always had the belief that like you can make a difference, you can make a change. And one of the biggest things that drives me crazy, and this is when people are like, well, that's just the way it's always been. Like, please don't tell me that because that is not a reason, that is not an excuse. Like, we can change it. I mean, and if there's it only takes a few people within a corporation, within a company, within an office, like whatever type of business it is, to really like flip that around. And some people aren't going to come on board, and that's fine. But you can really like change. I just switched to a new location last November, and I get over and over again people like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you're here. You're like a breath of fresh air. Like coming over here, helping everybody, really teaching people, really taking the time. Like you just seem like you really, really care." And I'm like, I do. Like I really care. I really do like my job. It's just I'm at this whole turning point where I feel like I can make such a bigger impact. And if it's not meant to be here, then it's meant to be somewhere else.
Hmm.
And I've been to events myself and I've heard women speak. And I think it's so helpful when you see somebody up on that stage that's maybe just like a couple steps ahead of you. And I always
Yeah.
say, I'm speaking to who I was. I'm speaking to that single, burnt out, overwhelmed, stressed out mom in 2020 and letting her know, like, it's okay. Like, you can do this too, and you can change it, and you can be happy, and you can be fulfilled. And, I really, those are the types of people, if I answered your question, that I
Yeah.
would want
Yeah.
to speak to.
Yeah. I think a lot of the topics, even that you mentioned for leadership, like how to have difficult conversations, is what a lot of people in general, like moms, I'm sitting over here like, ooh, I would want to know that too. I would want to brush up on my skills and take a lot of the things that you mentioned. And
Yeah.
that
And
brings,
I mean, it's even everything for your life because I'm going to be honest
yeah,
with you. Like, that was probably the biggest thing that I struggled with in my marriage is having a difficult conversation.
yeah.
And, not that I think that had I had these tools, like, would it have made a difference? And I think that's a big thing for me too, like in the reframing that you talked about earlier, because it's like, oh, if I would have done all this back then, would it have been different? Maybe. But you know what? Then again, maybe not. And I'm
Mhm.
also a very firm believer that everything happens for a reason. And had that not happened, I probably wouldn't be who I am today. I probably wouldn't have done all this. I probably wouldn't have a podcast. I wouldn't be speaking. I wouldn't be doing all these things. And um, but really, like I said, it's every facet of your life. It's like being a mother, being a friend, being a spouse, being a partner, like at work. It's all of those tools. And now that I've done this outside of work, like that's what also has made me better inside of work, made me a better leader,
Mhm.
made me, I was already mentoring before, but sometimes I would just be like, oh, I can't do this anymore. Like all these people are coming to me. And now it's like, it's truly joyful for me. And I really, really do love it.
And it seems like you have the tools and the strategy behind it, but then also the mindset. And I'm a firm believer that even just the mindset piece and even just the journaling, like having a process and feeling confident in the tools that you have in your back pocket, and then bringing that into, like you said, your career and marriage or relationships and all of that, it trickles into every aspect. There's a lot of people out there that are motivated for their kids, like get healthy for your kids, even like
Hmm.
get a good job for your kids, go for the promotion for your kids. And I'm on the fence of like, do it for you, like for your fulfillment and for your dream body and for your energy levels, because of course your kids are going to benefit. Of course you're going to get the promotion. Of course you're going to like have better relationships at work and at home and all of that. And I feel like that's kind of like you're inspiring the person to do what they want and to become the better version of themselves.
I love that you said that because I used to do that. I'd be like, what's your why? What's your why? And I'd be like, oh, well,
Yeah.
my kids are my why. Like, and then, and I had my mentor like, no, we're going to get deep with it. Like, of course your kids are your why. Like you want them to live and survive and to thrive, but like, what's really your why? And then I'd be like, no, I'm my why. I'm why
Mhm.
I want to do this. And everyone else is going to benefit from it. But I love that you said that. And I love that you touched on that because, yeah, at the end of the day, when I started realizing that I needed to be a priority, is when things really started to change. Like I was for so long putting my kids first and trying to put my marriage first and trying to put my parents first and putting everybody first and then like putting me last. And I
Mhm.
think she had us like put a list of importance, like where do you rank? And I was like, wow, when she asked us to put a list, like your top 5 important things in your life, she didn't give us any prompts for it. This is when I had first started working with her. And when I realized like I wasn't even on the list. And when she
Mhm.
called us out on that, because I wasn't the only one, she's like, how many of you guys don't even have yourself on the list? And I was like, damn, like,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
And you don't realize it because you're so, like you said, you're so busy, you're so stressed out, you're so burnt out, you're so overwhelmed. Like, I literally felt like I was living Groundhog Day over and over again. And it was just like, I really had to get real and realize that, oh, if I go upstairs for 15 minutes and I do like a little journaling or a little meditation, like my kids they're going to live, like they're going to be okay. They could just watch TV. And half the
Mhm.
time they didn't even know that I'm gone. They're like, what were you doing, mom? Were you in the bathroom? Like, I'm good. I'm good
Yeah.
now.
But then you come back downstairs feeling lighter and happier and
Yes.
like more clear, and like all that tension that you said earlier is like relieved, and they don't even know that, right? You took
Mm-mm.
that time for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how, like, when I say showing up as your best self, like showing up as a better version of you, that's what I mean. It's like, take the 5 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. And
This
just being more
was,
intentional with the time that I have, and like what you're doing. And it's like
yeah.
I could take 5 minutes and just sit there and scroll on my phone, or I could take 5 minutes, or we're going to go for a walk. I'm going to go outside. I'm going to read a book, like whatever it is, because I feel like once I I wouldn't say like I get like addicted to the tools, but so
Mm.
say if journaling is your tool or your modality that you want to use, and then that's like I said earlier, you just open up your mind to more and more things. So now maybe you want to like I always feel like I need to add extra stuff. Like okay, now I'm really good at journaling, but like now what else can I do? And then it's just like it becomes more and more, and it's like, ooh, I like breath work. Like now what else can I do? And
Uh-huh.
I just
Yeah.
ooh, now I like meditation. What else can I do? But everything, it's like when I just incorporate it and it just starts to become part of the routine. Maybe not daily, obviously, because like, we have jobs and kids and things like that. But now I know when things start to happen and I start to feel those feelings, I know how to check in with my body and what I need to do, like to flip it, to have more
Mhm.
control.
Yeah, so it's all about identifying that feeling, what it is for you. For you is the tension,
Hmm.
having that list of tools and modalities, and kind of like knowing what it is that you need in
Hmm.
that moment, and then just trying it. And I think you hit home on a point of like it doesn't need to be daily. Like I always say, consistency is any sort of pattern. So like even once
Yeah.
a week or like 3 days a week. And I think that gets people to start. And so I like that you said that too.
Hmm. I do have a goal
Sarah,
for myself that I'm going to journal every single day for the month of September. So
that is your goal?
yes, and that's why I
Yeah.
felt like this was all meant to be and so perfect that like we're actually interviewing each other because
Yeah.
I was like, yes, I can learn too.
Yes. Perfect. Awesome. Well, this was inspiring to me, and I already like want to learn more. But for those listening, if they want to book you to speak at their company, or just learn more about you and get more inspiration from you, where can they find you or contact you?
Well, thank you so much for saying that because I so appreciate that. And I can't wait to get to know you better too. But you can find me, like I said, my podcast is called Creating Sunshine. I release weekly episodes every Wednesday. You can also find me, main place you can find me is Instagram. I'm at Sarah, Sarah underscore Arvizu, just kind of Arvizu. Um, or you can email me. I have my email is createsunshineshop with two P's at gmail.com. And yeah, I would love to chat. And then I'll send you all those if you want to like put them in the show notes or whatever.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, they'll be in the show notes. The last question I'll ask you kind of on the spot is because I know that you love journaling and you've been doing it for a little while now. Do you use journal prompts? And if so, do you have a favorite prompt that you go to or just something that you like a type of prompt or a question that you ask yourself that kind of gets you started with journaling?
Okay. Yes, I do use prompts. Not always. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. But what I've learned about journaling and what I do now is when I first started, I feel like I used to journal about the past and about
Mm.
everything that had happened in my life. And now I feel like when I journal for the future. And
Oh, I love
so
it.
what I've started is actually at the beginning of every month is I set my intentions for the month. And it's not, I don't say goals because I feel like if you don't accomplish them, I don't want to feel like a failure at the end of the month. So I have my intentions that I set at the beginning of every month. But this month I decided, because I'm always like journaling for the future and looking towards the future. But now at the last day of the month, I'm going to celebrate what has ever happened in that month before. And then I'm going to, on the first of the month, set my intentions for the month going ahead.
I love that for a lot of reasons. One is because I do think people don't know what to journal about.
Hmm.
They get in their heads of like, it has to be about a specific topic, or it has to be an emotional thing, or it
Yeah.
has to be a prompt. And so I like that too. I use journaling for everything, like my to-do lists. And I love that
Yeah.
of like
Just write.
goals and
Just write. Just
intentions.
put the pen on the paper and like you will
Yeah.
be surprised. Just write. Just let it
Yeah.
flow.
Yeah. Advice from Sarah Arvizu, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sarah. Thanks so much for tuning in to this week's journal entry. I love connecting with my listeners, so make sure you screenshot this episode and tag me on Instagram at samantha.s.says so I know you're listening. And don't forget to grab your free training and journal prompts at www.samanthapenkoff.com/podcast.